Hi everybody and welcome to Stats Lab 2. This is Stacy and I'm going to be guiding you through a hands-on exercise using Excel to analyze some data to get some practice before we begin analyzing our St. John Center data. So if you've looked at Moodle and the instructions for this Stats Lab, you'll know that you need to be at a computer, obviously, where you can use Excel, and you need to have a data set downloaded from Moodle, and it's called StatsLab 2 Dataset 2013. So if by chance you don't have that open yet, put a pause in this video and go ahead and get that, because you're going to need that in just a minute. Okay, so let's assume then that you have your data set ready. Here's an overview of what we're going to do in this Stats Lab. First of all, we're going to look back at central tendency and variability, but this time, instead of just talking about it, we're going to put some hands-on data and actually calculate some measures of central tendency and variability. Next, we're going to move forward into the chapters that you read for this session, Chapter 4 in the Salkin text called Illustrating Data. I think it was called A Picture is Worth 1,000 Words, but at any rate, Illustrating Data. And we're going to, again, work with the data set and practice making some graphs and charts. And then we're going to look at relationships between pairs of variables. And again, hands on the data and using some pairs of variables to look at relationships between them. So as we go along, I'm going to open a database and you'll be able to watch me do what I'm doing, and then you're going to do it with me. And when you get to the end of this Stats Lab, you'll just save your Excel file and email it to your instructor. You need to know that you won't be graded on that per se. We're looking for you to complete the exercise and be able to replicate what you're watching, but there aren't points associated with this, so use it as a learning experience and don't stress. All right, so let's get started. Here's what we're going to do right away. In this first exercise, we're going to open up the data set and we're going to begin with some descriptive statistics. So what I'm going to do for now is make this slideshow a little smaller so that you can also see the data set, and I'll toggle back and forth as we go along. If you open up the data file, you're going to see an Excel spreadsheet that looks like this, and it's got some blank spaces down at the bottom for you to work on exercises with me. But up at the top here is the data. This is actually data for our class. If you remember the first morning that we met, we completed an 11-item evaluation self-efficacy scale. And there were 11 items that were related to research and program evaluation tasks. And for each of those, you rated yourself, your own confidence in your ability to do those things, on a scale from 0 to 100. So you're seeing those 11 items across the top here. There were also those 2 questions up front about what type of program you're enrolled in, and if you're an advanced standing student who's coming back for a master's degree, how long has it been since your last research class? So those pieces of data are in columns B and C. Now let's look at the rows. So we have 27 students in the 2 sections of Social Work 633, and you'll see that there's a row for each of them. We don't know which one you are, but trust me, you're in here, okay? Let's just use student 1, for example. So student 1 is a regular program student coded with a 1, and so that person skipped over the question about years since last research class because we already know the answer to that. It was last year. But student 2, for example, is an advanced standing student, and it's been 4 years since he or she was enrolled in a research class. And then going across, let's go back to student 1. This student, on a scale from 0 to 100, said his or her confidence in ability to do an electronic database search to do a lit review was about a 50 out of 100, 50 on the second item, 20 on the third item, and you'll see a row of zeros going across. And this is where we would put the total score, which is an average of those 11 items. Now, as you eyeball it, you're going to see that there's quite a bit of variability. We have some zeros in here and That person was not the only one with zeros, lest you're worried. We also see some hundreds and 90s in here, so quite a bit of variability in people's estimates of their own ability, as well as variability in their confidence across items. Some items, like doing a lit review, are very familiar to you, and so we're rated higher. And then some of the things as we get down out here that we'll be learning in this class, those items receive lower ratings on average. So let's come up here, and I want to make this, you can go to the zoom bar, and let's make this a little smaller so that you can see all of it. All right, so now you can see all the rows going across. You see where these pound signs are? That's because this column is a little too narrow, and so that 100 didn't have enough room to show up, and now it does. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this data to see what's going on here. And a couple things that I'm noticing already is that there's some missing data. Notice that right here, student 2 didn't answer the last question, and the same for student 7. So what we're going to have to do when we do an average is just leave that item out. But that means we don't have as much data on that item as we do on some of the others. And if we saw lots of blanks, we'd start to worry about the quality of our data. Some people will put a code in here like a -99 to indicate that that field wasn't just forgotten, it actually is missing information, or somebody refused to answer it. In this case, we're not going to do that because when we run averages, that -99 would be in there. But if you ever use a data set that it has a special code for missing information, you need to ask about if they're using a special sequence of numbers to indicate missing data. All right, so your first task over here is in column O, which is the overall score. We're going to go ahead and calculate the average for each student, and we're going to round it to an even number with no decimal places. All right, so let's go here to the first student, and as you know, there's several ways that you could do this. We could create our own formula. So for example, we could do parenthesis, and we could say I want this one. Nope, we got rid of it. Okay, whenever you do that and you realize that you've done something to mess up your data, just go up here and do the undo, and we can fix that. All right, so over here is where I want to do my formula, and I'm going to do, let's see, this is D2 plus E2 plus F2 plus G2, plus H2 plus I2 plus J2 plus K2 plus L2 plus M2 plus N2 divided by, and we said there were 11 items. And we need an equal sign up here in the beginning to tell it that we're giving it a formula. All right. So we could have typed all that in. Now that's really tedious. So as you know, there's another way that we could have done that. Let's get rid of this. Let's just erase it. We could have also told it equals, and we could have gone over here and said, give me a function for average, and there it finds it. And then we could have told it, and it's going to predict for us, it assumes that we want D2 all the way over to O2, or we could have typed that in ourselves. Or here's another way to do it. If it's not where you want it, it's not predicting correctly what you want, you could click on this, come out here, left click and hold it down, and drag Make sure you're holding down that left click so that you get all of them. And then hit enter, and that fills it in for you. And then click on OK. Notice that we get the same answer, but that was a whole lot faster and less tedious. So let's do one more. We're going to tell it we want a function. Notice how it's actually predicting that we might want average because that's what we used last time, average. But now it's not picking out the right cells that we want. So let's tell it I want to go pick those myself. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to go all the way over to here. Make sure that you're only getting one row. And again, I'm holding down, I'm left clicking while I'm dragging. And that gives me, when I hit enter, it takes us back to here, and then OK. Now, do I want to do that 27 times? Or do I just want to Control C, which is copy, go to the next one, Control V, which is paste, and notice that it pastes the formula in here. And if I want to look and see, it's going from D4 to N4. So let's see, we're in row 4, D4 to N4. That's correct. Now, here's another way that I could have done it. Up here, when I did my very first formula, once I get that set up, do you see this little anchor over here? I could go and pull on that little handle. Again, holding down my left click and drag it all the way down. And guess what? It's copied that formula into every one of those squares. So that saved me a lot of work. All right, so we've done this one right here. Let's go ahead and have you pause the video and see if you can get all of those averages into your database. And then when you're ready to go on, come back to the video and we'll take the next step. Okay, welcome back. Let's make this a little bigger so you can see it. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is, this has given us each student's score, which is the average of their underlying items. But what if we wanted to know for each item, what's the average for the class? So scroll this up a little bit so you can see the top. All right, so our items start in column D. And so let's come down to column D. And what if I wanted the average of all of these ratings for the class? Again, I could do the same thing. Equals average. I want to tell it which ones I want. So I am left clicking, dragging my cursor up. Make sure that you only get what you want, only one column, and only the cells that are for students. When you're sure that you've got what you want, you may want to scroll up and down a little bit and check. Then hit enter. That fills in the table, and either enter or OK will give you the average for item number 1. Now, again, let's save ourselves some time. Let's go down and grab this handle. And when I drag it across, it's going to copy that function into each of the cells. So now I have the average across the bottom for each of the 11 items. And you can see that, as we said before, we kind of eyeballed it and we observed the average for this first item, searching electronic databases to do a lit review, is 77. People are very confident about that on average. The lowest is a 37 here in column L, and that is for designing an inferential data analysis for your evaluation of some aspect of practice. And you probably haven't done that before or learned that before, so it would be natural that on average people in this class would say they felt less confident about that. Notice that we have a low score of 0 and a high up here of 90. So interesting. Again, let's pause the video. You go ahead and fill in these cells, and when you're done with that, turn the video back on and we'll do some more. Okay, so we have done the second step here. Now, we've got the overall scores over here in column O. Let's do some descriptive analysis of this. Let's see, I think I'd like to know the mean for the total score, the overall score, the average score. I'd also like to know the median, the range, and the standard deviation. And you notice the directions are to put these in cells 31 to 34. That's because on your worksheet, it'll already be labeled right here. B31 is for the mean, B32 is for the median, and so on. Now, the formula isn't there. You're going to have to do that. So if we want the mean, at this point, this should be easy because this is the third time we've done this. We want equals. We want the average function. But this time we've got a different set of numbers that we want it to look at. We want to come over here and we want to grab all of these overall or average ESE scores. So I'm going to start here. I'm left clicking so that I can grab all of them. Come down here, hit enter. And then OK. And you notice that it fills in the overall ESE mean. So for all 27 students, their mean overall score is 48. Pause the video and see if you can get that same result. The next thing that we're going to do is calculate the median. So again, let's use an equal sign to indicate that we'd like to use a function. And now we're going to need to go look for that median function because it's predicting we want to do average. We've done it so many times, that makes sense. All right, so let's type in median and have it go look for that. And here we go. All right, so I double click there to open it up. And now I need to tell it which cells I want it to calculate the median for. It's predicting that it's not predicting correctly, so I'm going to click here. Go back over here, again, the same row. I want the median score for the ESE. I'll highlight those, click enter, and OK. And notice that my median is a little higher than the mean, which means I probably have an outlier out there, somebody who has an unusually high score that's dragging that mean up. So let's pause the video. You go ahead and fill in the median. Okay, next thing we're going to do is find out what the range is. And the range is the difference between the highest and the lowest score. And as you read in the Salkin text, Excel doesn't calculate the range for you. You're going to need to use a formula to do that. So we'll need to know what's the highest and what's the lowest score. Now, we only have 27 students, so it would be pretty easy actually to just kind of scroll up and down here and find out which is the highest and which is the lowest. But let's say you had 1,000 students that you were looking at. You certainly wouldn't want to have to scroll through and try to find the highest. And you'd probably miss something and get it wrong because human error would kick in. So Excel does have a function that helps you to identify the lowest and the highest values. It's min and max. So let's go to cell E32 and let's tell it we'd like it to find the min. So we're going to put an equal sign to indicate we want to use a function. And let's have it find min, and there it is. So I'm going to say OK. And now it needs me to say which cells I want it to look at. Again, same thing. Coming over here, look at this same set of cells. And hit enter or little collapse symbol and OK. And notice it's found the lowest score for me. It's a 5. All right, max, same thing, equals. Now I'm looking for the max function. And there it is. And I want it to, again, look at that same set of scores. There we go. And OK. Highest score is 94. So we have quite a range. There it is, right there. Low score of 5, high score of 94. And as you know, what's the range? This one minus this one. All right, so we're going to create a formula here. I could either do it like this. I could say equals 94 minus 5, and it's going to tell me. Or I could do this. I could say equals E33 minus E32 and hit enter. Same result. So pause the video, you go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on. Okay, welcome back. Last thing we're going to do here is overall standard deviation, or scale score standard deviation. So again, equals to signal that we want a function. We're going to go up here, and what if we type in standard deviation? Let's see if it can find it. It sure does. It gives us a bunch of different choices though, so we'd have to click through here to find the one that we want. Or you may just want to go to your textbook and remind yourself that you want stdev.s because we're estimating the standard deviation of a sample. We're certainly not looking at the entire population of every graduate student who's taken an advanced research class. It's just a convenient sample of the people in our class. So we want to pick stdev.s. Now we need to tell it, I'm going to go from the bottom up this time. I'm holding down on my left click, and then capturing all 27 of them, and there is the standard deviation. Okay, now one thing that I want to show you is, let's say you had done any one of these things and you had gotten a result that had some decimal places in it. Here's how you can change that. On your Home tab, there are these two keys that gives you a greater or lesser number of decimal places. So if it had produced a result that looked like this, and you wanted to round it to just one decimal place, as the instructions indicated you should, then you could just use this to tell it, I want fewer decimal places. Same with these over here. When you ran that, if it produced something that had decimal places in it, you would just tell it, I only want a whole number. I don't want any decimal places, like that. All right, so that's the end of this video. You can go ahead and do the standard deviation on your own, and then you'll be ready to start with the next video.